family, what's good with you? It's your boy 2A in LA, and as always, fam, anything I say in this episode, prior episodes, or future episodes is just my personal opinion. Don't take it as fact. Don't take it as law. Always do your own homework and come up with your own conclusion. Right about now, fam, I should go ahead and tap that like button for your boy. If you're new to the channel, I want to say welcome. Come on in. You can join the congregation by smashing that subscribe button and requesting all post notifications. And if you are an existing supporter of this channel, I appreciate you more than you can possibly imagine. You are the reason this channel is anything. All right, fam, let's get this episode rolling. So look, fam, this is a continuation from a live I did a few weeks ago where I kind of talked about the differences and what you can kind of expect in general depending on the price point in which you purchase a 2011. And I think that 2011s are kind of grouped right now, although I gotta say, fam, the landscape is changing. The landscape is really, really changing. More and more players are coming in to the 2011 space. The number of players at each given kind of price point right now is expanding, and I'm anticipating, folks, a lot of the things that I'm talking about are going to become a lot more blended as time goes on, but time will tell about that. But I thought we would kind of get into kind of how it's laid out now, who are the players at the different price points, and what you should kind of expect for your money when you buy at a particular price point. So for the purposes of this video, we're going to divide up kind of these price points into 4 different levels, okay? Starting off with what I'm going to call budget-friendly 2011s, kind of $1,500 or less. So who's playing in that pool? You're gonna see the Springfield Armory prodigies of the world playing in that pool. You're going to see the Fusion Firearms XP Pros playing in that pool. You're going to see Alpha Foxtrot Romulus kind of playing in that pool. You're going to see the 2311 Match X playing in that pool. RIA, Rock Island Armory, you're going to see them playing in that pool. There's a lot of players playing in that space. And if I can, I'll kind of pull up a short list, not to be all inclusive, but kind of a highlight kind of who kind of the broad players are in that $1,500 and less pool. And I will give you an example. Of one such firearm. So this is your boy 2A in LA's Springfield Prodigy 4.25. Now before you go and you're like, that doesn't look like any Prodigy that I've ever seen in my entire life. Facts. Facts on that. But let's talk about what the original Prodigy has. Right now, you can pick up a Prodigy pretty much somewhere between $1,200 and $1,400, generally speaking. Almost always, that gun is going to have some kind of polymer grip module. It's going to have some MEM internal parts. You know, now they have the Prodigy Comp, but originally when I got mine, there was no compensated or ported options available. So it's going to have an okay trigger, not a great trigger, but an okay trigger that's probably pulling at 4 pounds or so. Well, my Prodigy has been redone by DSC Gunworks. And what you'll see here is an Masterpiece Arms grip module, so an upgraded metal grip module with a Masterpiece Arms mag weld. The entire internals have been dememmed and replaced with EGW parts. We've upgraded the trigger to a red dirt trigger. DSC Gunworks ported the gun, put in their V8 port system, And so this gun runs incredibly. And kind of what I did was I took the Prodigy as a donor gun and I upgraded it to the point where it has most of the features and the comforts that you see in higher end firearms in a budget friendly setup. Now, some guns that are in this $1,500 and less category will give you a little bit better value for your money. Specifically, I'm thinking about like Fusion's Firearms XP Pro. I'm thinking about the Alpha Foxtrot Romulus. Those guns, these are metal guns. In some instances that are ported or whatever the case may be. And so those guns are fine out of the box, certainly. But if you want to kind of, just like the Springfield Prodigy is fine out of the box. But if you want to upgrade them to kind of get their full potential, those guns probably require less work than, say, a Springfield Prodigy. But at the end of the day, you can buy, I guess the point I'm making is that you can buy a budget firearm that does hit above its kind of weight, punches above kind of its weight class, and you can have an entry-level budget gun that feels like you're shooting a $2,500, $3,000 gun with a few upgrades. And so that's kind of what I've done here in conjunction with DSC Gunworks. All right, fam, next up, let's talk about kind of entry-level 2011s. Now, really, the budget 2011 a couple of years ago was not a thing. Was not a thing. You can get a 2011 really for sub $1,500. Maybe there was one or two, like I think Rock Island Armory may have had, I think their gun was out at that time. But kind of Springfield, when the Springfield Prodigy came along, they kind of revolutionized and popularized that kind of budget 2011 and redefined what entry level was. Now I would say entry level is $1,500 or less. I'm calling that budget friendly. And now when I say entry level, I'm kind of referring to kind of what the old entry level was. I never called that budget because these guns typically run somewhere between $1,500 and $3,500 in price. And I have a few guns that kind of operate in this level. I've got a Staccato C2, I've got a Staccato P, and I have the gun that you are seeing right here, which is your boy's Jacob Gray TWC9 Covert Limited Edition version. This gun retails for $3,200. Now, this gun comes with a metal grip, right? This gun comes with a deleted grip safety. This gun comes with little or no mem parts. Maybe there's one or two mem parts, but pretty much you're talking about machined internals. This gun comes with porting. This gun is DLC coated, so you've got a better coating than Cerakote or something like that you would see on a Springfield Prodigy or some of the entry-level type firearms. Now, this gun is also kind of double the price of the Prodigy. That said, to get my Prodigy to what you see right here probably costs me another $1,200 or so, $1,300 or so. So all in, to get this gun to reach kind of its potential, I had to pay, between $2,500 and $3,000, or I could have just got this gun out of the box at $3,200. Now again, depending on the budget firearm, the budget 2011 that you choose, you may need less money to get that gun to that point. But yeah, so there's a lot of guns at the entry level. Now let's talk about kind of manufacturers at that entry level point, that former entry level point, right? We talked about Jacob Gray. They're there. They make a very good product. We talked about Staccato. They're there with the P, the CS, the C, the C2, and now the HD. You've got Bull Armory that's playing in that entry-level pool with some offerings and kind of like the $2,500 to $3,000 space, and some a little even lower than that. You've got Masterpiece Arms that's playing in that pool right around $3,000, $3,100. You've got Voodoo Gunworks who's playing in that pool. All these are really, really good options. And some of those guns, again, fight above their fighting weight. I think the Masterpiece Arms gun fights above its weight class. I think the Covert Limited Edition Jacob Gray certainly fights above its weight class. I think Bull Armory definitely fights above its weight class. And so these are really, really wonderful options. Now, some people will say, well, for the $2,500, $3,500 I pay at this price point, is it better than what I'm going to get at the $1,500 or less? I would say, generally speaking, again, nothing is always, right? There are always exceptions to every rule, but I would say, generally speaking, yes, you're going to get a higher quality gun at that kind of, $1,500 to $3,500 price point. Obviously, the higher you get, the $2,500, $3,000, just above $3,000, those guns are going to be better. But are they twice as good? It depends on which gun you're talking about. But you have to make that choice for you. I always use the example. I say, you can buy a high point for $160, right? And you can buy a Glock for $650, right? Is the Glock 3-4 times better than the high point? Probably not. But if I could afford the Glock, I'd rather have the Glock than the high point. I look at this as the same thing. Is Jacob Gray Limited Edition or a Masterpiece Arms DS9 Hybrid or a Voodoo Gunworks Priest, are those guns twice as good as an XP Pro? Twice as good as a Romulus? Maybe not. But if I could afford the Voodoo Gunworks gun, if I could afford the Masterpiece Arm guns, I'd rather have them than those. Well, actually, I'd rather have both. As you can see from my collection, I like them all. So, and I think everyone has something to offer. And I'm gonna, that reminds me of something. When I finish this, I'm gonna kind of circle back. But I'll put up what the entry level is. You'll see a couple of new players in there from what was there a couple of years ago, which was basically a couple of years ago. It's kind of Bull Armory and Staccato running alone, but now you've got the Jacob Grays in there. You've got the Masterpiece Arms in there. You've got the Voodoo Gunworks in there. And so more players added in that level, but not as many as we're seeing in kind of the entry level space and the mid-tier space. And since we're talking about that, let's get into the mid-tier. All right, fam, let's talk about the mid-tier. So the budget market has exploded. You've got a ton of players getting into that space. There have been a few new players, like I said earlier, into the entry level, but nothing like the budget. The mid-tier space a few years ago was very similar. It was like you had the Staccato XC in that space. You had kind of Phoenix Trinity H-Tac, who was kind of playing in that space. You had Combat Precision, who was kind of playing in that space, but not a lot of folks playing in kind of that, what I'll call $3,500 to $5,500 space. So what can you expect in kind of that mid-tier? Well, take a look at your boy Staccato XC. Now, obviously, this is not a standard Staccato XC. It's been upgraded by Vulcan Machine Works. You got a Vulcan Machine Works grip module added to it. You got a red dirt trigger, and obviously, aesthetically, it's been improved upon. But what you'll start to see is when you start to get up in here, componentry better, yes. But also what you start to see is heightened manufacturing process. You start to see slides that are just buttery smooth, right? You start to see sub 2.5 pound triggers. Now, even this trigger's an upgrade over obviously the staccato trigger, but you'll see even like the standard staccato trigger is about a 2.5 pound trigger. Now, the mid-tier, I said, this is constantly evolving. This gun comes with a polymer grip. So I did upgrade it, as I mentioned earlier, and I upgraded the trigger. Well, what we're starting to see is that pressures at the entry level point where they start bringing you more holistic guns like the Jacob Gray limited edition and guns at kind of the entry level, at the budget level like the XP Pro and the Romulus, has made mid-tier gun manufacturers step up their game. So check out your boys Race City Defense RC9. Again, this gun comes with an all-metal grip. It comes with a deleted grip safety. It comes with an Atlas trigger, right? It comes with Atlas internals. It comes ported. Again, rack slice butter, buttery smooth, phenomenal trigger, right? So you can expect, again, better quality, PVD coated, right? You can expect better manufacturing, better componentry now in the mid-tier, and better manufacturing processes. These guns, the tolerances are tighter, they're better fitted, again, better coating, and so and because of all that, ported, you'll start to see improved performance. Now again, you're talking about guns like the Race City 9, as you see it here, is like a $4,000 to $4,500 firearm. The Staccato XC base gun is $4,500, and the way you see it here, it's probably closer to $5,500 or so, right? Maybe even a little bit more than that. And so you have to ask yourself, okay, well look, it was one thing when I was paying $3,000 for the Staccato P or the Staccato C2 or the Jacob Gray or whatever the case may be. That's another double the price or $1,000 more than an XP Pro or a Romulus. But now we're talking about $4,000, $4,500, $5,000. We're talking 2.5 times, right? Is this gun 2.5 times better than an XP Pro? Is this gun 2.5 times better than an Alpha Foxtrot Romulus? What I would say to you is that they're better guns. Are they 2.5 times better where the additional price is fully warranted? That's a personal decision. That is a subjective decision. What I would say is if I could only afford one and I could afford the Race City Defense or the Staccato XC, I'd rather have that than an XP Pro. Or I want to have both. But they are better guns. How much better? Is the price warranted? I think that's a subjective decision. I think that depends on your budget. All right, fam, let's get into the high-end firearms. And I'm calling the high-end kind of anything above $5,500, anything above $6,000, I would consider high-end. These guns, typically speaking, are the height of manufacturing. You are going to see, typically in this space, the best possible componentry that money can buy internally and externally. A lot of these guns are running Atlas Gunworks parts kits and other very high-end machined componentry. These guns are primarily custom fit or semi-custom guns that have the highest level of manufacturing that you can expect. You're going to see primarily DSC coatings on these firearms. Again, all machined internals, custom fit, meticulously crafted and grooved with hours and hours of man hours to make these guns buttery smooth with the best possible tolerances out of the box. Case in point, check out your boys Hayes Customs Tri-Port. Now, Hayes Customs is one of the best 2011 manufacturers out there. Again, this gun has, at this point, a couple thousand rounds to it, but it was this smooth day one. Like, it just, when you're running this gun, it feels different. I don't know how to tell you. Again, when you have the best possible parts, a high-level artisan manufacturing who's putting a ton of man hours in it, you start seeing things like island barrel with ports. Look, fam, phenomenal gun. Now, this gun at the time I bought it was $6,500, I think. Now, if you were trying to order one today, it would probably cost you closer to $8,000. And since we're talking about like high-end guns, $8,000 guns, $9,000 guns, $10,000 guns, what better time to talk about Infinity? And I will put up kind of the gun manufacturers that kind of operate in this space. Again, not meant to be an all-inclusive list, but a lot of the players that play in the pool. And I'll kind of divide them from kind of what I feel subjectively are kind of the best of the best in that pool from the other players that play in that space. But what you'll see here is not only do you have a great manufactured gun with high quality componentry, you'll also see stylistically Island Barrel, stylistically Infinity takes their guns to another level. Beautiful firearm, right? But also is going to run you probably $9K. Now again, if you're going back and you're looking at a $1,500 Romulus or a $3,000 Jacob Gray, is this gun 3 times as good as this gun? Is it 3 times as accurate? I would say probably not. Probably not. There is the law of diminishing returns, right? Where dollar for dollar you stop getting that increased value. But I would say that it's no different when you're talking about thousands of dollars than when you're talking about hundreds of dollars. Again, is a Gen 5 Glock 43, is that gun 3 times as good, 3.5 times as good as the high point, 3 times as accurate? Is the trigger 3 times as better? Probably not. Probably not, but the Glock is better, right? And the question is, can you afford the Glock? And if so, if that's your preference, then buy the Glock. If not, buy the high point, right? I feel the same way. I did a video a while ago that says, I don't sell guns. I don't care what you buy. I like to experience all of the different price points so that I can come back and talk to you guys about what I see as the differences, right? And so whether you're buying this or you're buying a Prodigy or you're buying an Infinity really doesn't matter to me. I just want you to be informed. And I don't have a preference. As evidence of that, you see I own multiple guns. Fam, just keep it at 100. You know, I don't feel comfortable calling myself an expert because I think expertise comes with experience. And I'll talk about kind of my experience level. But as an example, I've been in finance for 30 years. I do consider myself an expert in finance because I have 30 years of real world practical experience to back me up. I don't have that many years experience with the 2011 platform. That said, in a very short period of time, I currently own over 33 2011s. 33. And I own them at the budget level, I own them at the entry level, I own them at the mid-tier level, and I own them at the high end. Several different ones at every level, right? I've reviewed in the last 2.5 years over 40 2011s, all at different price points, right? I have shot definitely over in the last 2 years, definitely over 50,000 rounds, probably close to 60,000 rounds through the platform at the different levels. So do I consider myself an expert? No. But I think you're going to be hard pressed to find somebody on YouTube who has that kind of experience level. And so while I do not consider myself an expert, I would call myself my opinion, a very, very informed opinion based on actual hard hours with the platform. Not to mention that I call a lot of these gun manufacturers friends, whether it's Chris James at Combat Precision, or it's Don over at Venom Customs and others. You know, it's not uncommon for me to be dialoguing with Rafferty or Hayes or any number of manufacturers in the space, Jacob Gray, any number of manufacturers in the space to get additional insights, right? That probably the everyday consumer does not have. And so, look, fam, like I said, for me, doesn't matter where you buy. And in some ways, and this was I was going to tell you guys earlier, in some ways, as beautiful as my Infinity is, and it's stunning, and it shoots just as good as it looks, right? In many ways, I appreciate my Springfield Prodigy maybe more. Not because it's a better gun, it is not, but because I had so much input into what you see here. Infinity made this gun. It came this way. It was amazing. So I always say, if you want to know what I feel about a gun, look what I do to it. I didn't change a thing because it was already the best of the best of the best of the best. I didn't change anything on my Hayes because it already had the best componentry. It already had the best manufacturer. There was nothing for me to change, right? But I sat down with my guy Dave at DSC Gunworks and we talked about this gun. I chose the grip. I chose the magwell. I chose the color scheme. We talked about how to put it together. At first, I was not going to change the internals. And Dave was like, yo, you got to upgrade these MEM parts with some EGW, some machined internals, and let me polish and fine tune the gun. So it was a collaborative effort. I've had a similar experience with Vulcan. I've had a similar experience with Monsoon. I've had a similar experience with Skip Guns, where it's a collaborative process. And sometimes when you're the one that's doing the work, you're the one that's making the decisions, you have a greater attachment to the firearm. So I love the thought, and I'm planning on doing at least one this year, where I take a budget gun and I make it a project gun and I elevate it up to something even better than it already is. That is something that's very, very attractive to me. It's very consistent with what I've done throughout my gun journey. And so again, fam, I'm not here to tell you which tier you should buy from. I'm not here to tell you that at all. I'm not here to sell you on anything. I just want to kind of give you who the players are in the marketplace. What are kind of the various kinds of price points where you see 2011s priced, and what you should expect for your money. If somebody is, and I don't know any manufacturers like this, but if somebody was trying to sell you an $8,000 gun, a $9,000 gun, and it had MEM parts, and it had polymer or 3D printed grip, and it was not ported, and it had a 5-pound trigger pull, yeah, don't buy it. It sucks. It sucks, right? Don't buy it, right? Now, if somebody's selling you a gun that's at $1,500 with those kind of components, then I would tell you, well, there's better guns available in that $1,500 range, number one. But number two, you can elevate that gun to be better than it is. If you're paying $6,000, $7,000, $8,000, $9,000 to the gun, you shouldn't have to elevate jack. It should be elevated, jack. It should be so elevated you're gonna get a nosebleed because you're up so high. All right, so that's this episode, fam. Hopefully you guys found this helpful, and this is a topic I promise you we're going to revisit in weeks and months to come. We are going to do my 2025-2011 tiers, a lot of new entries into the marketplace, so we're definitely looking forward to that. All right, that's it for this episode, fam. Until next time, as always, take care of one another and peace.